Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, June 26, 2024 meeting of the Calvert County Planning Commission. I'm John Toohey, Chairman. I will now determine the quorum by taking attendance. Commissioner Freeland.
Here.
Commissioner Gadway.
Present.
Commissioner Holler should be with us electronically.
Yes.
Commissioner Kernan.
Here.
Commissioner McQueen.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Dr. Holler, are you out there?
You have to unmute Dr. Holler.
Sorry.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening. All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, I can do that, but they can hear me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tamara Blake Wallace, Planning Commission Administrator. This meeting is being conducted as a hybrid meeting, allowing for both virtual and in-person attendance. Serving as our moderator tonight is Chris Goldsmith, and she will go over the rules and etiquette of the meeting.
Good evening. I'm Chris Goldsmith. I'll be your Zoom moderator this evening. This meeting is being recorded for record-keeping purposes. Virtual attendees will be muted to ensure no interruptions to the evening. If attending virtually on a computer or smart device, please raise your Zoom hand to indicate you wish to speak, and you will be acknowledged and unmuted at the appropriate time. If attending by telephone, you wish to ask a question or make a comment, *9 on this phone's touchpad to raise your hand, and you will be called upon in turn at the appropriate time. When the floor is open for public comments or questions, those attending in person will be asked to speak first, followed by those attending virtually when called upon. Please identify yourself every time you speak for the record and for the benefit of those who cannot see you. And in conclusion, please use the chat if you're experiencing technical issues with the Zoom video or audio, and we will work expeditiously to try to correct them. Please refrain from placing comments or questions in the Zoom chat, as not all in attendance at the public meeting can see those communications. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chris. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, action on the proposed agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kernan and a second from Commissioner Freeland. Any objections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
That moves us on to item 4, action on the proposed summary of actions.
We have the May 15th, 2024 joint work session.
Motion to approve that.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner
Second.
Kernan and a second from Commissioner Gadway. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. And we have the May 15th, 2024 PC regular meeting summary of actions.
Motion to approve.
Well, we have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Thank you, gentlemen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
That brings us to item 5, recognitions of persons attending the meeting. Tonight, we have Mary Beth Cook, Director of Planning and Zoning. Also from Planning and Zoning, we have Jason Brinkley, Acting Deputy Director. We have Tay Harris, Long Range Planner. Ron Marney, Environmental Planning Regulator. We have Chris Finnemore, Principal Planner. We have Kat Lockwood, Planner 2. We have Jay Cousineau joining us online, Planner 2. And we have from Emergency Management, Kara Buckmaster, Emergency Management Specialist. We also have Sierra Newsom here from Public Safety, joining us online. Also tonight with us, we have from Communication Media Relations, Aaron Lowe, Director, and Izumi Kawakami, Graphic Design Program Coordinator. And serving as our PC clerk tonight, we have Becky Parkinson, and John Mattingly is serving as our legal counsel. That brings us to item 6, major subdivisions for final approval and action. We do not have any on the agenda tonight. Item 7, applications for site plan review and action. There are no items on the agenda tonight. That brings us to item 8, major subdivision applications for preliminary review and action. Item A, we have SD 143071, Magnolia Ridge West. If you could wait until after her presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Chris Fenimore. I'm Principal Planner with Development Review in Planning and Zoning, and I'll be presenting the preliminary subdivision plan for the project known as Magnolia Ridge West. The subdivision preliminary plan was accepted for review by the Subdivision Evaluation Group, also known as SEG, at their regular meeting in September of 2023. Subdivision review, as we all know, is a 3-step process consisting of the conceptual subdivision plan, the preliminary plan, which is being presented this evening, and then final plats. Staff has reviewed the subdivision for compliance with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan, the Calvert County Zoning Ordinance, the Prince Frederick Zoning Ordinance, and other county ordinances and regulations. Here you see a location map on the screen. The property is located in the Prince Frederick Town Center. The site is on the east side of Maryland 24, on the north side of Maryland 402, also known as Dares Beach Road, and it's just west of Calvert High School. The zoning is Town Center, and we're in the new town sub-area. The orange line on the map is the Prince Frederick Town Center boundary, and then the colors are the sub-areas with the new town district in the pinkish color. And you see the site outlined in yellow. This is a capture of the tax map. The property can be found on tax map 24. It's comprised of parcel 6, 359, 360, and 496, and the total acreage is approximately 26.3 acres. And here is a 2023 aerial photo of the site and surrounding area. You see Maryland 24, Maryland 402 labeled. This is a color exhibit of the preliminary subdivision plan. The full 5-page plan is included in your packet, and it's also linked on the Planning Commission agenda. The proposed subdivision consists of 79 townhouse lots, totaling 4.6 acres. Open space parcels A and B, which total 16.3 acres. Outlot BR, which is 2.91 acres. And private rights of way, each of which are named, and that total is 2.25 acres. Here's a clip of one of the pages out of the preliminary plan. A few high points to cover with regards to the project. Density is proposed at roughly 3 units per acre. All access is proposed as private, within private rights of way. Public access easements for utilities and sidewalks. Open space requirements are being met. Recreational amenities requirements are being met with a combination of a play field, mini parks, a paved recreation area, and a trail along the Baltimore to Drum Point Railroad, which connects to the site. It actually was within the site, but then there's a trail connecting. Specific requirements and design are being reviewed with the site plan for all recreational amenities. The subdivision project must meet all requirements for adequate public facilities, including schools and roads. The subdivision is proposed to be served by public water and public sewer. Proposed utility easements are shown on the preliminary plan. Road names have been submitted for review and are approved by staff in the Department of Public Safety as well as the Department of Planning and Zoning. Again, the project must go through the 3-step process for subdivision approval as well as the 3-step process for site plan approval. prior to submitting permit applications. The subdivision evaluation agencies have reviewed the plans and have submitted comments. The subdivision application has been reviewed by the development review staff as well as review agencies listed herewith, and this is reading out of the staff report, recommendations, and finds it to be consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan and in compliance with the Calvert County zoning ordinance, subdivision regulations, Prince Frederick Master Plan and zoning ordinance, as well as other applicable county ordinances and design standards. Staff recommends conditional approval of the proposed preliminary subdivision plan for SD 143071 Magnolia Ridge West, lots 1 through 79, open space parcels A and B, outlot B-R, and associated private rights of way, subject to the conditions found in the staff report, and those are on pages 2 through 6. The next steps, the Planning Commission could consider one of the following options: approval with conditions as listed, approval with modifications to conditions, deferral, or denial. I will mention that the surveyor for the project is here along with the traffic engineer and the applicant. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to entertain those. If it's something appropriate for them to answer, they're here.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could. Christine, in your memo on the staff comments, page 4, the environmental planner references forest conservation TDRs,
Yes.
item number 2.
Yes.
And then on the next page, rural planner, first comment, looks like forest conservation TDRs are not anticipated, which is correct.
Forest conservation requirements have been met for the project already. The TDRs have been conveyed and allocated to the project. The final forest conservation plan is approved. What I normally do is include the most recent comments in the staff report that are substantive, and the rural planner, I don't believe, reviewed the last iteration of the preliminary plan. I didn't want to not include it, so that's why they're off. It's probably a timing issue.
So are forest conservation TDRs still available?
That's a good question. There may be some, but since that is a private exchange, it's not something I know. I don't get involved in. Ron Marnie is here. Jennifer David is the one who reviews those. There's probably very few.
I'd like to hear from Ron. I was under the impression that there will no longer be forest conservation TDRs.
There are a small number available in the market, I believe, less than 20, but they are sunsetted effective June 30th due to changes in state law. So while the TDRs themselves will exist, after June 30th, they will only be able to be utilized as standard TDRs.
Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir.
Rodney Gertz with Quadville Homes, 560 Seal Beach Road, Prince Frederick, Maryland, 20678. They're already applied on this project, so we did a forest conservation plan that took care of both projects, the one you saw last month and this one in conjunction. So this whole forest conservation plan, we wanted to get that done and out of the way, and just so we didn't have questions. I know we were talking about trees originally on this grade. We were talking about, or Commissioner Kernan, but where we're talking about, so we kind of did all that originally, went through that, went through a board of appeals, did everything we had to, and then so the TDRs, the 12 TDRs that were required, I think it was maybe 12 or 13, might have been 13, have already been applied on this. And that may be where a note came that they're not required, but at this point, they've been allocated and retired, and that forest conservation plan's in place, and it was, part of it was even beating that deadline, that they wouldn't be utilized after that. So just to kind of clear that up.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, sir.
Christine, the TIA for this is included with the other section that we saw last month?
I may ask Mr. Lenhart to elaborate if it's needed, but the traffic impact analysis that was done was for both projects. So it was included in the one that was done for Magnolia Ridge.
Okay,
Correct.
so the TIA that we saw after the vote last month included this. I see heads shaking back there, okay. So I'm not a traffic engineer, and I spent about an hour going through what was provided to us. And I don't see any mention of the Armory Square commercial development in the TIA for this. Am I not looking in the right place?
Mike Lenhart, the traffic engineer.
Hi, good evening. Yep, my name is Michael Lenhart, Lenhart Traffic Consulting, 645 Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard, Severna Park, Maryland, 21146. The Magnolia Ridge project and the Armory Square project were kind of coming through the study process about the same time. The Armory Square project actually included Magnolia Ridge as a background development in its traffic impact study. And the way it worked out was that it kind of moved forward. First, it got approved. Magnolia Ridge did not have Armory Square as a background development. It did have Calvert Hills, it had Prince Frederick Apartments, and both of those projects have since been built out. The Armory Square study that included the Magnolia Ridge in the background had Magnolia Ridge was 430 some units, plus 100,000 square feet of shopping center. It was vastly overstated what the traffic was for Magnolia Ridge in that development. And that study was reviewed and approved by State Highway. Also, we've looked at traffic counts. State Highway Administration has traffic counts that were conducted within the past year at 2-4 at Fox Run and 2-4 at Dares Beach. Both of those traffic counts are actually the same volume of traffic or slightly lower traffic volumes than what was in our traffic study for this original project. And so the levels of service today are actually slightly better than what they were in our original study. Slightly, not much, but slightly. And so there's been no increase in traffic. In fact, some of the volumes have decreased, some of the movements. And so, based on that, we know that the Armory Square and Magnolia Ridge have been tested together and approved in traffic studies.
Christine, who in the county reviews the traffic study?
That would be the project engineer for the project within the Department of Public Works. The reviewer for this project is Bill Birch. I didn't receive any comments with regard to traffic mitigation needed for this project. I will say the bulk of their comments are coming with the site development plans for both of these projects. So a lot of the design from both water and sewer and engineering in public works the bulk of their comments are with the site plans. So they have those to review as well. This project has been submitted as far as detailed site development plan, but it is still under review.
So Mr. Lenhart, TIA is reviewed by the Department of Public Works.
Correct.
Traffic engineer?
And State Highway Administration.
And because of where it is and state roads being impacted or part of the study area, State Highway also reviews it.
And we received no comments from either
Not
Public Works or State Highway.
Not under the subdivision review. Again, the subdivision is what is before you tonight. They're also reviewing the site development plan.
State Highway did approve the traffic impact study, though, both this and Armory Square, and the studies are still valid.
Magnolia Ridge West, the access is off of Fox Run Boulevard. So State Highway didn't have any substantive comments because it's not accessing off of the state road. We'll mention that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir?
Sir, if I could get you to stay.
Sure.
Last month, someone had asked, how is the Fox Run with adding this amount of additional traffic coming in and out of Fox Run on both ends, how that could not be detrimental to the flow of traffic as it currently is? Because you go by on certain days and it's multiple revolutions of the light coming out at shopping center when you're dealing with school buses and whatnot. And we were told last month, well, once we get Fox Run built and build all the additional apartments and, condos, townhouses, whatever, dwelling units,
Sure.
that traffic is gonna be better. Could you elaborate on how traffic can be better when you're adding that many more dwelling units in?
Certainly. So,
In addition to the new shopping center?
sure. So, I mean, the project will add traffic. You know, there will be homes, there'll be people driving. The traffic study used accepted practices to generate the amount of trips that would be generated by these units. And I would reiterate that our traffic study, when it was done, the project was assumed to be over 100 units, or approximately 100 units more than what is now before you, between what was approved last month and what was approved tonight. So the traffic study overestimated by 100 units how much traffic would be there. The completion of Fox Run Boulevard between Route 24 and Dares Beach Road will, there will be an alleviation of some of the existing traffic. So assume, you know, before we add in the site trips, the extension of that roadway is gonna allow people that now, if you're on the Fox Run side, you have to come out on the 2-4 if you're going to Dares Beach Road. If you're on the Dares Beach side, you have to go up the Route 24 or up the Armory Road and up that way. The extension of Fox Run Boulevard allows that traffic to reduce the circulation and go where they want to go without having to go around. And so that's going to improve traffic some. It's going to reduce the traffic somewhat on Fox Run at the shopping center. And of course, there will be some site traffic that then is added on top of it. But your guidelines, the state highway guidelines, you know, we tested the study and the intersections do pass. I understand that, you know, when the schools let out in 20-25 minutes, it's a flush of traffic that comes out. And that has a peak to it that perhaps the traffic signals are not timed properly. State Highway can time the signals such that between, and I'm not sure when the school lets out, but let's say between 2:30 and 3 or 2 and 3, it will allow an extension on the side street. So the signal can pick up whether there are an increase in vehicles. It'll add time to that movement. That can be done during other peak hours as well, during the morning or evening peak hour, not just with schools. But once the roadway is open, the state's going to retime those signals because traffic is going to readjust in the area, and the state will apply signal timing that's appropriate for how the traffic settles in.
Now, in reference to the signal timing you're talking about, the state, I believe, is already committed into synchronizing the north and south traffic lights through Prince Frederick to synchronize traffic for northbound, southbound traffic.
Sure.
So that project, I believe, is quite a few $1 million in and of itself to synchronize those lights. So how much more is it gonna be to program these two lights just for the schools and then have all the other lights synchronized with them?
It's not an additional fee, it's just timing. It's programming. The signal cabinet at each of the intersections has a controller box in it, and they can punch in timing programs that allows the signal to be flexible at certain times of the day to address increased side street traffic. So when the school's let out during a certain time period, they'll program it to allow that flexibility.
And so by default, all the other traffic lights in Prince Frederick would have to be reprogrammed during those same times to maintain the sync of the traffic lights through the town.
Not necessarily. I mean, it would extend the green time on Fox Run Boulevard. So that if cars keep coming, basically the signal has a little camera out there, and the camera will see if cars are coming. And as long as cars come, it will extend it up to whatever the state program's in. And they can extend that amount of time during the periods when school's let out.
Okay, that had me confused because we were told by next year, give or take, you hit either traffic light, the first traffic light in town, you hit green. If you travel the speed limit, you'll get every light green. So, but from what I'm hearing, that's outside of school letting that out.
That's probably peak hours.
Okay.
At morning peak hour when you've got commuters heading to DC, in the evening when they're coming home.
Fair enough, not to be
And that's
that-
outside of the schools.
All right. The other question I had was, you said all the intersections passed. What did they pass? What grades did they pass with?
They were level of service D or better. Most of them were A's, B's, or C's. Route 24 at Dares Beach Road. Was it a D in the evening?
Did you say it was a D?
A D, yes.
Okay.
Now this project is vested under the old zoning ordinance.
Right.
as the
I get it.
guidelines, so.
I get it. In my house, a D wasn't passing. That wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
And I know that a couple years ago when we talked about the APFOs, and I know that these came in before the APFOs, that we were very clear that Ds would not be acceptable. So I just thank you for clarifying that would be a D.
Sure.
Under the guidelines, you did not have to take into consideration the Route 4 Stokely Road intersection?
That's correct. Stokely Road was not required as a study intersection.
But under, I think it's the road ordinance, the Director of Public Works could have expanded that area, is that right?
I believe that's the case, yes, for if there was a good reason. I can tell you I've worked on many projects right in this area, and including Prince Frederick Apartments, Calvert Hills, Armory Square, and then Magnolia Ridge, and none of them included the Stokely Road intersection.
Do you have any other questions?
I'll be right back here if you need me.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
I'd like to make a motion if I can.
Certainly, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve SD 143071 Magnolia Ridge West with the conditions as listed above, as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're
We have a
welcome.
second,
Second.
and we have a second from Commissioner Kernan. We do all those in favor? Do we need a roll call
Roll
here?
call, please.
Roll call, please, certainly. Commissioner Freeland,
Opposed?
Commissioner Gadway,
Opposed?
Commissioner Holler,
Yes.
Commissioner Kernan,
Yes.
Commissioner McQueen,
Opposed.
and Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
So is that 3-3?
Yes, it is.
And then I would vote yes. That makes it pass 4-3.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you.
That moves us on to item 9, long-range planning. Item A, draft Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan update.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Kat Lockwood, Planner 2 with with the Department of Planning and Zoning. And next to me, I have Izumi Kawakami, Graphic Design Program Coordinator with the Department of Communications and Media Relations. I'm here this evening to give you an update of the draft Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan. Background. The Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan update process was initiated in January of 2020. January of 2020 through March of 2021, Planning and Zoning staff held various open houses and workshops for the public. At that time, the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan first draft was completed. In July of 2021, the Planning Commission directed staff to distribute the first draft for a 60-day review. The Planning Commission directed staff to revise the draft plan due to public comments received in October of 2021. And then we had to take a pause to the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan in June of 2022 due to a request from the Board of County Commissioners to make an amendment to the 2019 Comprehensive Plan. These amendments removed the Phase 2 expansion area from the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan. The Comprehensive Plan amendment process was completed in November of 2022. Planning and Zoning staff resumed working and updating the second draft plan into flipbook format in January of 2023. In March of 2024, staff presented a status update to the Planning Commission regarding the transition of the draft plan in flipbook format. Staff has also worked to update and revise content due to the comprehensive plan amendments and ensure data is still relevant. Substantial changes. The substantial changes in the second draft plan are: Phase 2 expansion area is reduced. We have added an introduction chapter and demographics chapter. We have revised the environmental and natural resources chapter. We have added additional node focus areas. The permitted density has been updated from 14 residential units per acre to 7 residential units per acre. The map on the left shows what the Phase 2 expansion area used to be, and on the right, what the current town center looks like with the reduced town center boundary. On this slide, we now have what the additional introduction chapter looks like. It now brings an added touch to the master plan. Here's an example of what we have added to the demographics chapter. For example, we have included links and relevant data for the Prince Frederick population, which help to better inform and shape the goals and objectives of this draft master plan. On this slide are some of the revisions that we have made in the environmental and natural resources chapter to include sensitive areas, protective measures, streams, and their buffers. Now we have emphasized the impact that the town center has on the 3 watersheds, which are Battle, Honey, and Parker's Creek. On this slide are the differences in node focus areas from the first draft plan to the second draft plan without the expansion area. The bottom left node focus area on the draft 1 map has now been removed due to the Phase 2 expansion area being eliminated. The draft 2 map shows the additional node focus areas in the current town center. What we have here are the changes to the permitted residential density of units per acre. In draft 1, the density per acre was to allow up to 14 residential units. In draft 2, the density per acre has changed to allow up to 7 residential units per acre. On this slide are some examples of pages we now have in the second draft Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan. For example, we have the memory of people and places on the bottom of the slide, which portrays the tobacco buyout. We also highlight the wisteria that still stands to this day at the site of the original Calvert Hotel on Main Street. Other additional highlights include the reconstruction of the county administrative building, which is the picture on the bottom right. The picture at the bottom center of this slide highlights the Baltimore Drum Point Railroad Trail, which is yet to be completed. Before I go to the next slide, I would like to say that planning and zoning would not have been able to produce this amazing master plan without CMR's partnership. Azumi and I have worked countless hours to highlight the aspects of Prince Frederick and the vicinity that were not in the July 2021 draft. My favorite chapter is the Heritage chapter. I was able to spend half a day at the Historical Society doing research on events, places, and people in the past which were not highlighted before in the July 2021 draft. We were able to illustrate the story of Prince Frederick through pictures and graphics and texts that include a historical timeline. Azumi, do you have anything to add?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Izumi Kawakami, graphic design program coordinator with communications and media relations. I am new to Calvert County and the state of Maryland. My family and I moved here from Hawaii last year in August. And I am so excited to move to a beautiful county, much of which reminds me actually of the island of Kauai where we moved from. So that's really refreshing and reminds me of home. My situation is a little unique. I came into this role without any prior knowledge of the master plan process or even what a master plan is. So I have definitely learned a lot while working with Kat on this project. I do, however, have an extensive background in graphic design and bringing visions to life, which I feel like is what we did with this project. My main motivation while working on this master plan flipbook has really been to take the document in its text and map format and make it more accessible and engaging for the community who might be like me and not understand what a master plan is. And I hope that this flipbook version, it's full of graphics, as you can see, and colors and photos. And I really hope that it will boost engagement again, among the community members and get them excited about what's to come in Prince Frederick. And I hope that this new format encourages you all to look really closely at what the master plan says and has and provide feedback to us, because we are waiting to hear what you guys say. I'm really excited to be here and continue to look forward to working with Kat on future master plans to make our community even better. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Calvert.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we have questions, comments?
One more slide.
Oh,
In conclusion, staff requests the Planning Commission to review the updated Prince Frederick Town Center with the proposed amendments and to provide direction with the option to include direct staff to send the amendments to agencies for review and schedule a public hearing and notify the agencies and adjoining jurisdictions at least 60 days in advance of the public hearing. Direct staff to make changes to the amendments and proceed with item A above. Direct staff to make changes and return to the Planning Commission for its review or take no action. Does anybody have any questions?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, questions?
I have a question. So,
Certainly, sir.
timeline. What's the type of time, I mean, because you talk about 60 days notice and all this other thing, so we're looking 3 months out, 4 more months before this will go public? Or can parts of it go public and then add the final parts?
Hi, I'm Tay Harris. I'm the Long Range Planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning. So if you go ahead and direct staff to initiate this 60-day review, we can start that tomorrow. We have set that up in anticipation. And once that 60-day review starts, I think it goes out to August 24th. So then we would anticipate holding a public hearing for the September meeting, Planning Commission. So that's the timeline.
So how long has the track changes version been available to the public for review?
Not very long. It was posted to the website today, and then it was given to you all for this meeting, but as soon as it's been available to the public.
So this is an 84-page document?
The track changes?
Yes.
Yeah, it does seem very long. It
It-
might be because there's track changes in it. So,
So
Is-
don't you think the public should get a chance to review it a little longer before it comes back to us or goes out for public hearing? I mean, public hearing, you really don't get the opportunity to make a good argument for what you see as wrong or want changed. You've got 2 minutes to speak.
so once we initiate this 60-day review comment period, which will start tomorrow if directed by you all, they will have opportunity to provide written comments during those 60 days. So we have the Town Center Master Plan Update email set up, and we will be directing comments to that email, also to the Planning Commission. Also can be submitted by hand or mail to P&Z, Department of Planning and Zoning.
So I think the Planning Commission, at least myself, would like to see the public comments before the agency comments. And I have a question about one of the track changes.
Sure.
My page 27, it's talking about steep slope and stream buffer.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in one of the older versions where not only was there a 50-foot buffer, but if steep slope was involved, there was an increased buffer for the percent of steep slope. What happened to that?
I believe that's critical area law, and Prince Frederick is not located in the critical area. So that expansion for steep slopes applies to the critical area 100-foot buffer. And if I get anything incorrect, Ron is here to correct me, but I believe that's what you're referring to?
Good evening, Chris Fenimore, former environmental reviewer. You are correct. In the county zoning ordinance, there is an expanded stream buffer. There is not an expanded wetland buffer. The Prince Frederick ordinance refers to the county ordinance for that expanded stream buffer. Does that answer your question?
I think I'm trying to digest it.
Stream buffer expands, the wetland buffer does not, under the current ordinance.
And under the proposed ordinance,
For slopes. Because keep in mind that the county zoning ordinance is also being rewritten. So I say current ordinance, meaning the current county zoning ordinance.
what's in place today?
Correct. And I'd have to honestly look up that section to explain to you how it expands, because it's 4% of slope and then it's like a paragraph.
Yes, that's what I remember, but it's not connected to critical area, the 1,000 foot.
It expands in a similar way that the critical area law is written. Yes, it's similar.
So my comment is that, I'd like to see that language back in this rewrite. So if I get the opportunity to submit a comment, that will be my comment.
Meaning for the master plan?
Yes.
Thank you, Chris Fenimore. Any other questions?
Commissioner, what page was that on the track changes?
27.
27.
I think it actually starts on 26 and rolls over to 27.
So this project here, have you had public come in and look at it, see it? Has anybody outside of this room, or you guys, without having to have all that data in there, but at least showing them what it's about and how it works?
Not for the second draft, for the first draft.
And did you, when you tracked who looked at what pages and different stuff like that? I just happen to know this business, okay, just to let you know that. So I know the company you're working with and used to do this 20 years ago. So normally we would put something out and let people go through it, and all that feedback would come back before we start redesigning and changing and adding. And I know you have enough problems just with the zoning changes, but there's also a thing here is getting the citizens comfortable with a product like this. I think it's great to have it, and I'm hoping more people will pay attention. But that's just sort of, it's a lot of money we put into this, and just sort of wondering where we're at.
Understood.
Question for council.
Yes, sir.
If we were to go with option A with the, or actually at this point B, suggesting the changes, and then refer to option A, it says at least 60 days advance notice of the public hearing. Can this body ask planning and zoning to give 90 days?
You can extend it as long as you'd like, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
And council, that would be in the motion that would be done?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any other questions or comments? Sir, please.
So, we're gonna make some changes. Can we put together do you have a study group that's looking at all this and how it communicates? So that a public study group or a small study group before we launch this out?
The intent was to just follow the 60-day comment period with the track changes available to the public so that they could make comments on the draft plan and the track changes. That was the intent and the process that we were going to follow.
My assumption from knowing a lot of citizens in this county, they ain't got a clue what's going on when it comes to the town centers, the amount of all this information you're about to put out there. So I just think it's gonna be more of a shock and total misunderstanding myself.
Do you mean just the flip book format and that it's so
The flip book-
dramatically different looking?
That's nice, and that helps them see things visually and understand things.
Mhm.
Okay, but all the regulations and everything else behind that you're adding to this process is where they're gonna have, I'm just talking for people that I know. They haven't got a clue.
Mary Beth Cook, Director of Planning and Zoning. So we actually started this process in 2020, had a lot of public meetings, a lot of workshops, little work groups with the citizens to get to this point. All we're doing right now is kind of changing the format and providing clarity and the changes that the commissioners requested for the reduction in the expansions. So there really haven't been a lot of changes since that time, but we want to give everybody another opportunity. The other thing I want to remind you, specifically back to Commissioner Freeland's question about the stream buffers, this is the master plan. So these are the goals and the visions that we want to see. That type of setback and expanded buffers will be addressed in the updated Prince Frederick Town Center zoning ordinance. So that's where the actual regulations, the meat of the regulations will occur. So once we get this master plan adopted, then we'll be moving on to the zoning ordinance with the specific regulations.
So is that why they were taken out of the master plan?
That's very possible, yeah. And I'm thinking back 4 years now, so
Right.
we tried to, as much as possible, take regulations out of the master plan because they don't belong there. They belong in the zoning ordinance.
And how do we, seeing that they're coming out of the master plan, ensure that they are already in place in the ordinances?
Duly noted. We will
Does
keep
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And we will, I'll make sure that the zoning staff is aware that there was a concern raised tonight so that they have it on their list already to address.
Right, because if we see it going away, like, if it's just being taken out of one place to be formalized in another place, quote unquote, with teeth, that's a good thing. We just have to make sure that something doesn't get dropped in the process.
We will make sure that does not happen.
So Mary Beth, how long has the track changes version been available to the public?
I think we just put it up today. So Well, it would have gone up when your agenda went up as well, so that would have been last Friday. So we are sending it out to all the public, the agencies, the clearinghouse at the state, everyone at the same time to get those comments for as long as you decide to do so. And then we can bring those comments back to you before scheduling a public hearing.
Mary Beth, all the people that have commented on this over the past 4 years since we started, do they get notified that this is coming up, or they?
If they signed up for notifications, every time we change our website, they get notified.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Freeland, with your question in reference to the omissions on page 27, and what I noticed in a couple other places, with the explanation that we were just given, what is your thoughts on on moving this forward or without any recommended changes?
I'm fine with moving it forward, but I'd like to see an additional 30 days added. Because if you're reviewing the track changes of this document, it's a long read.
And it's not easy.
No.
I'd like to make a motion,
Sir?
Mr. Chair, to direct staff to send the amendments to the agencies for review and schedule a public hearing and notify the agencies and adjoining jurisdictions with at least 90 days in advance notice of the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Freeland and Commissioner Gapp with the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes all around. Dr. Holler?
Opposed.
No, opposed.
So we have 2 opposed, Dr. Holler and Commissioner Williams, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Correct. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. We appreciate it.
That moves us to item 9B, Draft Calvert County, Maryland State Annual Report 2024.
Hi, I am Tay Harris, the Long Range Planner for the Department of Planning and Zoning, and I'm going to present to you tonight the 2024 Calvert County, Maryland Department of Planning Annual Report. Before I get started, I would like to thank staff for helping prepare this report and to remind everyone that the data in this report and on this PowerPoint covers activities during the calendar year of 2023. Section 1 of the report discusses residential permits issued inside and outside of the priority funding area, also referred to as the PFA. There were 195 new residential permits issued in the PFA and 339 permits issued outside of the PFA, for a total of 534 new residential permits issued in 2023. Section 2 of the report discusses amendments and growth-related changes in development patterns. And these include text and map amendments, final subdivision and site plan approvals and recordations, and then capital improvement projects involving transportation improvements, public school projects, public facilities and public safety projects, solid waste, and water and sewer projects as well. Section 3 of the report discusses the development capacity analysis. So inside the PFA, there are 3,174 residentially zoned acres with residential capacity. And outside the PFA, there are 19,197 acres, for a total of 22,371 acres.
Excuse me, Tay.
Yes.
The PFA, the priority funding area,
Yes.
just for those that don't know the vernacular, what is that?
The PFA are areas that are targeted with for state funding, and they're designated through a local government and state government approval process. So the PFAs in Calvert County mostly align with the town centers, and then there are a few other areas outside of the town centers that are PFAs. And these generally have a density of 3.5 units per acre. They are served with water and sewer, and they're also targeted for, transportation projects.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there were 4,291 residential parcels and lots with capacity in the PFA. And outside of the PFA, there were 2,272 parcels and lots with residential capacity, for a total of 6,563 residential parcels and lots with capacity. There are 13,025 residential capacity units in the PFA and 2,775 outside of the PFA, with a total residential capacity of units of 15,800. Section 4 of the report discusses agricultural land preservation and local land use goals. In 2023, 88 acres were permanently preserved under the Agricultural Preservation District program through the purchase of 30 transferable development rights valued at $150,000.
So Tay, this property apparently was already in preservation and just simply certified their TDRs? Because the APD program is not in existence.
That might be the case.
For the record, Mary Beth Cook, Director of Planning and Zoning, you're correct. Yes, we still have a moratorium on creating new agricultural preservation districts.
Section 5 of the report discusses trends with the following measures and indicators. Residential major and minor subdivisions with a net density of 0 were in the PFA, and there are 27 outside of the PFA, with a total of 27. Residential major and minor subdivision approved lot areas with 0 in the PFA and 137 acres outside of the PFA, for a total of 137 acres. And the percentage of total units in terms of lot area, again, 0% in the PFA and 100% outside of the PFA. The total gross commercial building square footage was 37,006 in the PFA and 5,164 outside of the PFA, for a total of 42,170 square feet of commercial building. And the percentage of the gross commercial building and square footage is 87% in the PFA and 13% outside of the PFA. And then section 6 talks about the county's adequate public facilities ordinance, and indicates if there was any development deferred due to the APFO. And in 2023, there was no development deferred based on our APFO. So in addition to the annual report that local jurisdictions are required to submit to MDP, the land use article also requires local jurisdictions to submit a 5-year mid-cycle report for the 10-year comprehensive plan cycle. So since the BOCC approved and adopted the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan in 2019, 2023 is the 5-year midpoint mark. So the next few slides, I'm just going to provide you with a summary of what is in the 5-year mid-cycle report. Between 2019 and 2023, there were 1,901 residential permits issued. 44% of those are in the PFA and 56% are outside of the PFA. There were 472 residential units constructed, of which 71% are in the PFA and 29% are located outside the PFA. The county preserved a total of 509 acres valued at over $1 million through their agricultural land preservation and local land use programs and goals. 430 acres valued at $731,589 were preserved through the TDR program, Transfer Development Rights Program, and the Agricultural Preservation District Program. And under the Rural Legacy Program, 78 acres were preserved, valued at $338,279.
Okay.
Yes.
Top paragraph, residential permits issued were 1901, units constructed was 472.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the other 1,500? Are they pending, or are those what?
So just because a permit's issued doesn't mean there was a building constructed in that calendar year. So maybe that's the discrepancy.
Now, this is for a 5-year period?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, that could happen over the 5 years.
And so as I'm looking at this, if I'm understanding this, only 472 residential dwellings were constructed from 2019 to 2023 in the county?
Yes, according to our records.
Okay. Seemed like there would be more.
So over a 5-year time period, only 25% of the residential permits are being utilized?
In this time, it looks like in this 5-year time period, yes. I don't know if COVID had anything to do with it, because COVID was involved in that time period too, but I don't know if that would produce the discrepancy.
I'm thinking less than 100 units a year across the entire county. That seems low for new construction.
I believe that 100%.
I believe it,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so in that same time period,
Well,
the
you
county
wonder why.
approved 32 minor subdivisions and 8 major subdivisions, 9 of which are in the PFA, and consist of 89 lots, 88 units, 68 gross acres, and a net lot area of 48 acres. 31 of those subdivision approvals are outside of the PFA and comprise 138 lots, 140 units, 1,091 gross acres, and a net lot area of 797 acres. During that same time period, the county approved 43 site plans, which represent 2,056 gross acres. Of those 43 site plans, 23 site plan approvals, or 53%, are located in the PFA and represent or comprise 481 acres. 20 of those approvals, or 47% of the approvals, are located outside of the PFA and comprise 1,575 acres. These approvals represent 760,910 square feet of commercial building, of which 334,687 acres, or 43%, are located in the PFA, and 3,079,254 acres, or 53%, are located outside the PFA.
Say, I have a question. What are the percentages under the 43 site plans were approved, 2,556, 481 acres is 53%, and 1,575 acres is 47%. How are those numbers related to each other? Why are
Right,
they?
so that was misrepresented in the slide. So the 53% equals 23 site plan approvals. So there were 23 site plan approvals in the PFA, and there were 20 outside of the PFA. So that 53%.
That's the 53 and the 47.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I caught that late, but I tried to, I spoke that, but it doesn't match the right line slide.
So the two last lines on that slide, is that correct, acres, or should it be square feet?
Those should be square feet.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay, right,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you for catching that.
We are paying attention.
Well, Wilson is. Yeah. One of us is, yeah.
I just trying to figure out where we got 300,000 acres in the
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a heck of a lot of
The
land.
county grew up.
Yeah.
I think this brings us to our last slide. So in the report, it also asks local jurisdictions to talk about any significant changes that have happened for their comprehensive plan or their zoning ordinance. since the adoption. And so we included the reduction or elimination of the expansion areas for the Huntingtown, Lesby, Prince Frederick, and Solomon's town centers. The elimination of the town center 1 mile radius replaced with the residential zone, the RD zone, and the permittance of no more than 7 dwelling units per acre in the RD zone. And we also provide the information that a moratorium was placed on text and map amendments due to the ongoing comprehensive zoning ordinance and zoning map updates. So before I go on to next steps, do we have any other questions?
That's 7 dwelling units per acre in the RD zone. Is that 7 across the board for any areas throughout the county?
So that should be town centers, not the RD zone. We're still in discussions with the Board of County Commissioners on what the density is going to be in the RD zone. So yes, it will be across the board in all town centers. The maximum density will be 7 units per acre in the new Calvert County zoning ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But Mary Beth, there could be lower densities.
Yes, there could be.
Okay.
Yes. So
That's
right now,
undecided at this
it's
moment.
as high as 20 units per acre in the C1 of Solomon's Town Center, and then there are several areas in town centers where you can have 14 units per acre. Those will all be reduced to 7. Anything that's currently less than 7 will stay. So there's some that are 4 units per acre. Those will stay 4 units per acre.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir?
I move to adopt the 2024 annual report with the corrections that have been identified this evening, and direct staff to send the report to the Maryland Department of Planning and copy the Board of County Commissioners, Calvert County.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Freeland and a second from Commissioner Kernan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Jock?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate it.
That moves us on to item 11 on our agenda, items of interest. Before you, you have the site plan and subdivision lists, and it's just for informational purposes. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Moved ahead of myself. I moved ahead of myself, I'm sorry. That brings us to item 10, items for discussion and or action. Hazard and flood mitigation plan update. Sorry about that, Karen.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kara Buckmaster. I'm the Emergency Management Specialist in the Department of Public Safety.
Ron Marty, I'm Calvert County's Environmental Planning Regulator, Department of Planning and Zoning.
And tonight we are here to present updates to the hazard mitigation plan and the flood mitigation plan for you. We will now be playing a recorded presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Amalia Pleak-Tam, Environmental Planner 3 with Department of Planning and Zoning.
My name is Kara Buckmaster. I am the Emergency Management Specialist with the Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Management. This evening, Amalia and I will be providing updates on the Calvert County All Hazard Mitigation and the Calvert County Flood Mitigation Plans.
Calvert's 2019 Comprehensive Plan discusses hazard mitigation in Chapter 4, and hazard mitigation plans are required under Section 322 of the 2000 Disaster Mitigation Act. Calvert's hazard mitigation plan was updated earlier this year and identified 28 hazards facing Calvert County. Interestingly, flood ranked the leading hazard facing Calvert in 2017, the last iteration of the hazard mitigation plan. This spring, it fell 15 spots. Kara will explain the hazard ranking later. That's just a bit of a tease. Our flood mitigation plan will become an addendum to the hazard mitigation plan. Flood mitigation plans help secure us flood insurance discounts and help protect us by siting critical infrastructure out of flood-prone areas. So up at the top right is a table showing our CRS classification. We're currently ranked 8, and if we improve that ranking, we can secure a better premium reduction. So we're 8 and we get a 10% reduction. If we go up to a 7 or 6, we can get a better premium reduction.
Okay, so the Calvert County All Hazard Mitigation Plan is a multi-jurisdictional, multi-hazard plan that identifies natural, human-caused, and technological threats and hazards in Calvert County. It evaluates the risk level associated with each of those hazards, and then it proposes a mitigation strategy to reduce the long-term exposure, thereby reducing the long-term risk to those hazards. It was developed using a whole community approach that involved participation from nearly every department in Calvert County government, as well as representatives from the town of North Beach, the town of Chesapeake Beach, utility companies, and then we also had 2 public meetings to engage and receive comments from the public. After a year-long update process, the plan was issued approved pending adoption status from FEMA. And then the plan was adopted by the Calvert County Board of County Commissioners by resolution on February 27th, 2024. Next slide. The first half of the hazard mitigation plan is the THIRA, which stands for the Threat and Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment. It's a 3-step process in which we identify and assess the risk associated with hazards. We look at the impact that those hazards may have on the county, and then we assess or evaluate the county's capability to respond to and recover from those threats. Threats and hazards are identified by looking at historical content, including damage reports and meteorological reports from the National Weather Service, and we also use projected and modeled damages for some. As part of the THIRA, we also include social vulnerability and potential changes in future conditions when identifying the risk factor associated with each. If you look at the chart on the left, you'll see the lists of all of the hazards that were identified for Calvert County. And as Amalia mentioned, flooding has fallen significantly lower than it was in the 2017 plan update. I believe this is for several reasons. The first is that as human beings, we tend to have a higher risk, perceived risk with hazards that we've experienced more recently. So you'll notice that pandemic is number 2, and emergency services, which refers to disruptions or shortages, is number 1. And that's because we've experienced both of those things very significantly in the past 4 years since COVID. However, all of the hazards that are ranked with high risk have very similar risk factors. And so that means we're paying a lot of attention to all of them, regardless of where they fall specifically in that list. I also believe that it's very probable that flooding will eventually make its way back up the list, probably as soon as the first annual update. This is meant to be a living document. Things ebb and flow depending on what hazards are presenting in the county at the time. But we are still paying a great deal of attention to all of them, especially those that are ranked as high risk. Next slide. And then the other big half of the mitigation plan is the mitigation strategy. So it includes both structural and non-structural projects that the county can implement to become more resilient by reducing risk and also improving the county's ability to withstand future disasters. Each of the action items in the mitigation strategy are linked to objectives that were developed for the plan, and they fall in one of 4 categories: planning and regulations, structure and infrastructure, natural systems protection, and education and awareness. If you look at the chart on the right, you'll see which mitigation action items were developed for each hazard, and you can notice that flooding, flash flooding, and nuisance flooding were one of only 2 hazards that have mitigation action items identified for all 4 of the technique categories. Having a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan makes the county eligible to pursue millions of dollars in funding to implement these action items. This is something that Calvert County has been pursuing for several years and will continue to do so for the future. Examples of some of the structural mitigation projects we are currently implementing and pursuing include elevation of structures out of the floodplain or acquisition of severe repetitive loss or repetitive loss flood properties. We're also exploring other project opportunities, including some stormwater flooding mitigation with the Department of Public Works. Next slide.
Turning now to the flood mitigation plan. The flood mitigation plan has 4 sections. We went over the first 2 in February. The first describes our process, which began October 2023, and our team comprising staff from 4 departments. The second describes Calvert County. The third and fourth sections have the meat of the plan, assessing our flood risks in Section 3 and identifying mitigation actions in Section 4. What you're looking at here are images from the state's MyCoast app, which is one of our data sources for where and how frequently flooding occurs in the county. We also use our flooding history that goes back to 1996. Our flood-prone areas can be roughly grouped into 5 areas: Neal Estates and Breezy Point, Brooms Island, Cove Point, Solomon's Island, and areas adjacent to the cliffs. Here we see the total average amount of rainfall for each year from 2000 to 2023. Calendar year 2018 continues to have the highest amount of rainfall, followed by 2003. 2017 had the least amount of rainfall. 2000 looks very low. It had incomplete records and cannot be considered a valid record for analysis. We also looked at our monthly average precipitation record. January is the driest month for Calvert County, averaging 2.36 inches of rain. June is the wettest month, averaging 4.89 inches of rain, closely followed by August with 4.88 inches and July 4.63 inches. We also looked at dams in Calvert County and their relation to potential flooding hazards. Calvert has 2 high hazard dams, 10 significant hazard dams, and 6 low hazard dams. HAZUS is a multi-hazard software program used by FEMA for these plans. It models flooding and provides guidance on what types of interruptions will occur from that flood. Here we used a 1% annual chance flood event. The economic figures shown here are county-wide damages and broken into building and contents loss on the top and business interruption loss on the bottom. We held public meetings and talking with citizens. We wanted to do a closer look at 4 of those 5 flood-prone areas. So here we zoomed in on Breezy Point, Neal Estates. So the flood-prone area is shown on the right, and the economic loss figures are shown on the left. We looked at Solomon's. We looked at Cove Point. And we looked at Brooms Island. And these details are in the plan, so people in those areas can take their time and read through these findings. While developing this flood mitigation plan, the flood study and planning team identified a need to use more recent, customized data for modeling flood inundation. In response, the Department of Public Safety developed the Newsom Flood Susceptibility Classification Model, or NFSC model. It's a custom-built hydrologic raster dataset that uses more recent data than HAZUS modeling. This model was trained against flooding impacts from Hurricane Isabel and Sandy. These storms were chosen both based on the available flood imagery and the fact that based on Calvert's flooding history, these are reasonable worst-case scenarios. Staff intends to use this model to predict flood susceptibility from major storm events, tidal flooding, rising sea levels, and we're working on publishing this online so citizens can determine their proximity to flood-susceptible areas. A little closer look at this new model. We're very excited about it. The data inputs used for this modeling include aspect, curvature, elevation, slope, topographic wetness index, stream power index, normalized difference vegetation index, stream density, soil hydrologic groups, and land use classification. 6 of these inputs were calculated from data specific to Calvert County, obtained March 15, 2023. The model was then tested against the flooding impacts of Hurricane Isabel and Sandy. Using a receiving operator characteristic curve to measure the confidence in the model, the NFSC model scored 97.6 accuracy. The plan concludes with 8 recommendations. 1, coordinate with environmental health on septic holding tanks in coastal areas. 2, more detailed hazard studies of the flood-prone areas in our county. 3, encourage citizen feedback on flooding trends. 4, encourage citizens to supply flood trend photos to MyCoast. 5, integrate flood mitigation planning into hazard mitigation planning. 6, review MyCoast submissions with Maryland DNR to track flood trends. 7, continue interdepartmental cooperation in implementing the more detailed mitigation efforts detailed in tables 36 through 39. And 8, increase transparency and public information sharing of all hazard and flood mitigation. So where do we go from here? Following consultation with you, the Planning Commission, we will then go to the Board of County Commissioners and seek to amend the current hazard mitigation plan with this flood mitigation plan as the amendment, as an addendum. And then we'll begin implementing these measures, reporting annual progress to FEMA, and publishing our progress on our website. Thank you.
That's the end of the presentation, so we can take questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I just got one question. So cite the sections of the comprehensive plan that this is consistent with.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Tell me what sections of the comprehensive plan this is consistent with. This is what you're asking us to find it consistent with the comprehensive plan this evening, and it's a wonderful presentation, but I've not seen any correlation between the comp plan and this. Obviously, there's a public safety component.
Unfortunately, I'm not prepared to cite the exact sections within the comprehensive plan that this relates to.
I also don't know off the top of my head, besides that it is referenced in chapter 4 of the comprehensive plan. So all of the hazards that are in the previous hazard mitigation plan are referenced in chapter 4 of the comprehensive plan. However, I'd like to clarify that that's referencing the 2017 hazard mitigation plan. We've just updated that, so there's 10 hazards listed in the current comprehensive plan. The new hazard mitigation plan has 38 hazards. It's a lot more comprehensive, and so is this flood mitigation plan. So as the comprehensive plan gets updated, this will get integrated. That will be reflected.
So it looked like a lot of your focus was on rainfall, not necessarily tidal inundation. Was there a reason for that?
Yes, there is a separate, what we'll refer to as a nuisance flooding plan that will be, but that's actually in the process of being updated and would eventually be a section, a subsection or chapter of this document when it's updated.
Commissioners, anyone else?
Yep, page 18, you reference people uploading their photos to, quote, MyCoast, and item 6, review, quote, MyCoast submissions. How do the people that live in the county that may live in an area know what MyCoast is?
We've done a substantial amount of public outreach regarding MyCoast. During the flood mitigation plan update, we had 3, it was originally 2, and we added a 3rd public meeting because we felt like we needed to have one. And during all 3 of those meetings, we did a lot of promotion for MyCoast. We're also promoting it on the county's website, and we're promoting it on the Calvert Prepare mobile app, which is a free mobile app for citizens that they can download for emergency planning. So we've done all of that, and the state is also doing additional outreach. We had a really good attendance for the public meetings for the flood mitigation plan, and we were speaking directly with residents from, a lot of them from Neal Estates, but from all over the county, also Solomon's. And we were directly encouraging them to use this app to report their flooding to us, and then they were going out and telling their neighbors, and there was, I don't have the statistics on it, but there was a huge surge in reports of flooding from Calvert County on my coast because of that. So we know for a fact that it was fairly effective.
And I'm familiar with the Neil Sound, or Neil Estates thing. And I know those people are very active down there. Let me just approach this from a different angle. What is My Coast?
Okay, I can take it. So My Coast is a free mobile app that you can download onto your phone. It is sponsored by the state of Maryland. Essentially what you can do is you can take a picture and link that picture to your coordinates of wherever you're standing when you take that picture, and then you can post it onto the app. At the same time, the timestamp for that photo is taking the tide gauges and connecting them to that flooding. So what it allows us to do is it allows us to identify patterns in what we're seeing in our tidal gauges with the flooding that the residents are seeing in real time.
And is that only for coastal, or does that deal with, I mean, we had 4 years ago, huge flooding, that places that have never seen flooding before, that were nothing but a dry ditch, had 3 feet of water going across fields.
No,
Does that include anything like that as well?
Everyone is encouraged to use it if they have flooding, because it helps us get a better handle on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, it's tied to the same concept as FEMA. The FEMA flood zones, they're not just coastal, they're riparian, so that app works anywhere, everywhere, and is relevant to it. Additional outreach we did, April is Floodplain Awareness Month, and Maryland, we did a whole video series, full update of the web page, and that included a big part of the push for the My Coast app.
Big change from the Waffle House.
I suggest we create links to the apps, because there's like 5 or 6 different ones I just looked at, and I have no clue which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
Be
so
helpful. I would like to see them and be included.
the county just released a new Calvert County government mobile app, and so I've been talking, because I manage the Calvert Repair app, and so I've been working with Jennifer Sterling and CMR, and we're trying to deconflict that messaging. If you guys would like links to the applications, I can make sure that you receive them.
Also QR codes available.
We do, yeah. I mean, I could show you tonight before you leave how to download them.
I just put it in My Coast, and it pulls up a list like this.
Yeah.
So I just want to know which one of those.
And I think if we're having trouble finding it, the public might have trouble finding it.
Yeah, we did include QR codes, and if you have the Calvert Repair mobile app, My Coast is linked directly in there too. So, and when we were doing the public outreach, we had the QR codes, Emily?
Yes, we definitely have the QR codes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments? Anybody willing to make a motion here? What is it that you guys need done from us?
I believe that we are seeking approval of the flood mitigation. No?
You need to ask the planning commission for a consistency finding and a recommendation.
We are seeking consistency finding and a recommendation.
Consistency finding. Let Ron knows.
We're looking for the planning commission to find consistency with the comprehensive plan and give us direction to proceed with the moving forward.
And a recommendation.
And recommendation.
So what was it in section 4 of the master plan that tied this in? The question was asked earlier. You said it was section 4. What in section 4?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the exact references. The staff member who muted the project had a surgery and was not able to attend tonight. If you have something specific on floodplain, I'd be your guy, but I did not come with the exact numerical references. Beyond that, it is the environmental section, the public safety section.
And it's the hazard rankings that are referenced in chapter 4, so that breakdown.
Okay, great.
One of the things I'd like to add to that one of the things that we've been doing over the past year with the hazard mitigation plan update and the flood mitigation plan update is really working on coordinating those better and integrating those documents together. So having the flood mitigation plan added to as an addendum to the hazard mitigation plan has been an action item for like the past 10 years. And this is the year that it's actually gonna get done. We've really been working to break down our silos and coordinate these better, and then that's going to be reflected in future planning cycles with a comprehensive plan so that we have stronger answers.
Very good. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Commissioner?
I'd like to make a motion for the 2024 flood mitigation plan that we find the flood, correct me if I'm wrong,
Hazard and flood mitigation.
The-
Hazard and flood. Go ahead.
find the flood and hazard mitigation plan consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend the flood mitigation plan to be forwarded and hazard plan, correct?
Yes.
To be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners for approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Williams and a second from Commissioner Kernan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any against? Dr. Holler, are you for it?
He said aye.
He said aye.
You did give us an aye?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody's for it. Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That brings us to item 11, items of interest. Again, you have before you the site plan and subdivision list for your information. Are there any questions or comments you have on?
Can I be recognized?
Yes.
Commissioner, there was a question on the last one. It's actually section 4-16 of the comprehensive plan, which discusses all forms of hazard mitigation. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments on these two lists? If there are none, we'll move on to item 12, public comment. The Planning Commission will accommodate public comment in person or by telephone or virtually. Individuals should call in advance if participating by telephone. They should call 301-715-8592, and the meeting ID is 858-5579-4151. And if asked for a passcode, to use the pound sign. Speakers, whether in person or participating by telephone or virtually, will be limited to 2 minutes as individuals, or 5 minutes if they are a designated representative of a group or organization. We'll take in-person comments first. Anyone would like to comment?
Good evening. My name is Bob Estes. I'm representing Friends of Hunting Creek. Good evening to all of you.
Good evening. Good evening, sir.
And I've got a few comments, of course. On page 5 of the change tracking, it seems like the protection for the Parkers Creek headwaters has been removed. And if I were allowed to ask a question, other people might wonder if this is in fact correct or not. So I'll leave that hanging there. My next comment, I noticed that there is a chance of adding adding stormwater management facilities to the adequate public facilities, and I'm definitely in favor of that. I think that's been long overdue. Okay. Now it's time for my yearly rant on stormwater management, because it's somewhat important to remember things. One thing that, as many of you all know, I've been tracking the actual stormwater released by rainfall here in the county. I have a database of well over 17 years of data, well over 5,000 lines of code, which I've given to many of you in the past. But I wanted to remind you that one of the goals in Chapter 10, Goal 4, is install or enhance stormwater management systems to reduce pollution to the Patuxent River and the Bay. That's a lofty goal and one that I support, but one of the problems we have are that the designs are not adequate, and many of you have seen the evidence of this from various pictures and reports that I've given you. If you haven't, such as Mr. McQueen, I can provide that to you. It's quite, and some of you have seen it in person. So.
And some of us will testify that you're an excellent tour guide and would encourage other members of the board to go on tour with you, sir.
It's always available, and I usually do add that. Just bring your boots and expect to get dirty. One thing that I've noted in the past is if we were to design, first of all, these systems to the actual rainfalls that we have, as opposed to just getting away with what's traditionally allowed, it could save us a lot of money. Now, we're all for saving money. I'm for saving the Bay and the Patuxent, but if you don't care about that, and I think most of you do care, if we were to add margin, like any engineer would do to a chaotic system, such that we don't have the failures and we don't have something we need to fix. The budget's tight, and this is one of the least sexy things in the entire budget is fixing stormwater management. But if you were to actually add margin to these systems, guess who pays for those margins? That would be the developers. Guess who doesn't have to constantly be looking after these systems, constantly repairing them, constantly replacing them, and constantly making excuses for why it's okay to allow this pollution to go in. That would save us money. So even if you don't care about the environment, saving money, I think is something we can all agree on. And I haven't had a lot of success in getting people to understand this, but maybe you all can understand that and maybe make a difference. What else do I have here? So, and by the way, these changes, you can always make the design qualifications locally, as long as you meet and beat the state. And lastly, flood mitigation could potentially also be helped by better stormwater management designs. You absorb the water into floodplains, guess where it doesn't go? It doesn't go into your backyard. So thank you.
David Bury, Chesapeake Beach, speaking for myself. Wanted to follow up on a comment from Commissioner Freeland about how we deal with long-term sea level rise caused by climate change. I would have expected that to be part of the flood mitigation plan. So I'm glad to hear that it will be in the forthcoming nuisance flooding plan. But there are some serious future land use issues here. I remember seeing a draft copy of the Breezy Point flood mitigation plan from almost 10 years ago. Now, it never went anywhere. But they were projecting that by the end of the century, a lot of the Breezy Point residences would simply be underwater. And the options were that you either had to evacuate the residents or you had to convert that property to literally floating houses, which seemed odd. But that was in the plan. So the question is, at some point, we need a good study about projecting future sea level rise in Chesapeake Bay, and especially what storm surge will do with that underlying sea level rise, and what parts of the county will actually be inundated. And this will have major consequences, I think, for future land use. So the difficult issue is, should we start folding in those assessments into the zoning ordinance now? So I just want to leave that out there for future discussion, because under the current draft zoning ordinance, there will be land uses permitted in areas of the county that very likely by the end of the century will be underwater. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone online who wishes to speak?
I have one
Excuse-
phone caller that's I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's unidentified. If you wish to speak, you may raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad.
You okay? All right. I'm Myra Gowans, and I just want to share some information. I'm with Calvert Citizens United, and about stormwater management. You all have a large project coming up down in Lusby, the Villas, and I want to paint a picture for you just to give you this to think about as this plan is unfolding. The Pentagon and the parking area take up 34 acres. The land that's being planned for Lusby, the Villas, is going to take up 25 acres. So when you see the plan on the board or on screen or on the plat, it looks okay. It's nice. It's little blocks. But stormwater management is what is going to happen to people who live down this way, down that way, and they are going to be impacted. It's called the spillover effect. And I want you all to think about this while you all are being asked to identify issues of the plan. Is it a good plan? Is it safe? What I want you to think about is this spillover effect, and we don't talk about that. Okay, I've been in land development for years, and that is an impact that once you approve something and it's a done deal, guess what? The spillover effect happens then. So I want you all to think very clearly about this and listen to what's going to happen to the folks down in Lusby, the Branch Club, and the contiguous properties. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we do not have anyone online who wishes to speak, so that brings us to item 13, adjournment.
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Doctor. We're done for the day. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.